You're watching Buzz with Jess Lujan.
Good evening, Guam. I'm Jess Lujan. Welcome to this edition of The Buzz. Tonight, we'll be talking about something taboo, suicide, and the alarming number of suicides here on our island. We have two ladies here from the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse. We have Audrey Tapasna. Hi, Audrey, how are you doing?
Good evening.
You're the program coordinator and prevention and training branch, Safe Talk and Assist trainer, right?
That's correct.
And we also have Sarah Dimla, the PIO, Public Information Officer for the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Prevention and Training Branch, right?
Yes.
Ladies, alarming numbers. Sarah, tell us about the stats.
Well, what we use to give us data and information is a suicide profile on Guam, put together by the SEOW, or the State Epidemiology Outcomes Work Group. And the data shows that the rate of suicide on island is once every 2 weeks.
Once every 2 weeks.
Yes, and 60% of those incidents are of youth and young adults under the ages of 30.
Under the age of
So
30.
those are very alarming numbers. For this year, from January to October, the official report from the chief medical examiner is 25 suicide deaths so far.
So far this year, and we haven't closed out the year yet. Wow.
Yeah.
What do we attribute that to? Under 30, what is that attributed to? I mean, is this, you know, as I looked at some of your stats, the prevalent races here, Chamorros and Micronesians. Why Chamorros? Why Micronesians? Is it because maybe the cultural shock? Or let's start with the Chamorros first. Why?
Well, you know, the incidents in general, the top two cited reasons for completing suicide is family disputes, like the family, you know, they're set up in at homes, and also relationship problems. So a lot of communication barriers. Other reasons, although not as high as the top two, are sexual orientation, you know, getting in terms with their sexual preferences. Also physical and sexual violence, depression and sadness, and then lastly, tobacco and illicit drug use and abuse. Those reasons, we use those reasons or those factors to, you know, shape the efforts that we do, our branch does, to prevent suicide.
You say tobacco and illicit drug use. Tobacco. Why tobacco? Or yeah, I mean.
Well. We're assuming it's not the use itself,
tobacco,
but the reason behind the use. For example, it can be, a person can be depressed, that's why they use tobacco.
Or so someone's depressed now, they resort to smoking.
It's a lot of factors that are correlated with each other that later on escalates and, you know, leads on to the ideation and attempt of suicide.
Now, again, you know, we see this, and the numbers are alarming. As a matter of fact, when I open the paper and I see folks under 30, I'm wondering at times how many of this. I know when I was in the legislature and we did, of course, the funeral rounds, I often, you know, wondered, and at times I would ask and say, yeah, it is, and you're right, once every 2 weeks, and I think for a while there, and sometimes there's one a week, depending on, I guess, the time of the year. How do we? What signs do we look out for? I mean, you know, I mean, you and I could be sitting here right now, and as most people do, and they say, "Wow, I was just with her, I was just with him last night, and things seem to be fine." What do we look for?
Well, first of all, the message that we try to put out there in the community is that each one of us would be the best lifeguard, the person to serve as a lifeguard or somebody to look out for each other. So we know our families, we know our friends very well. So if we see that there's a huge difference in their appearance, if they look very fatigued or they look very tired, and, you know, just they're performing signs of that's not within their character, we should be alarmed already, because those are signs and risk of having suicide
But now,
thoughts.
see, that's the typical, you know, sign, the early signs and symptoms. How about you and I sitting here right now, everything kosher and all that, and then tomorrow something happens and we didn't, and as good friends, there was nothing, relationship seems to be fine, home setting seems to be fine, nothing was brought out, we didn't talk about anything, and then we hear a lot of those stories as well. You know, incidents
I
like
think that to the person at risk who is thinking or may have thoughts of suicide, that sometimes they choose to show their signs to. Sometimes they are not comfortable with showing their signs to maybe a really close a person, and sometimes they choose to share what's going on with them, maybe through a crisis hotline.
Sure.
So sometimes it depends to the person at risk on who they would like that individual to pick up on their invitation, to pick up on their sign. So you may not have seen anything, noticed anything with the individual, or have heard them speak of anything, but another person might have. So it's really going to depend too on the person at risk.
Now, how about you know, something that we've heard that's made the national media a lot, the cyberbullying. That happens, you know, it happens one-on-one. We get it on the computer, and that maybe you have classmates that maybe you're talking lifestyle or whatever it may be, and that comes through there. How do we, again, if a person is so to themselves, what signs does this one look for if you're not really you may have an acquaintance, but really not an intimate acquaintance, or really not close to a person? What do you look for if that is done through technology?
I would think that it would come from the family, watching out for their behavior, what they're saying. If you notice them doing something else, and you know, going up and approaching and asking, "Is everything okay? I noticed you are, you know, didn't seem yourself today." Asking and listening. A lot of times, or most of the time, individuals who are maybe thinking of suicide really just want to be heard.
There you go.
And sometimes the thoughts, you need to ask about the thoughts before they act on it.
Okay. You want to chime in our conversations? You can dial 632-8255 or 632-TALK. We're going to take a quick break and then come right back.